Most people would take one look at this chair and put it straight in a skip. 50 years old, wobbling on a broken leg, the joints hanging apart, the finish cracked and gray with age. But this chair isn't rubbish. It's solid oak, hand-joined, and built by someone who expected it to last a lifetime. Today I'm going to prove that it still can. Stick around, because by the end of this video, you're going to see this chair come back from the dead. I picked this one up from a house clearance last week. The family didn't want it. They said it had been sat in their nan's back bedroom for as long as anyone could remember, and once one of the legs gave way, it got shoved in the shed and forgotten. That's the story with so much of the furniture I restore. It's not that the piece is worthless. It's that nobody's shown people how to bring it back. Here's the thing about a chair like this. It's not actually broken, not in the way most people think. What's happened here is completely normal wear, built up slowly over 50 years of use. Wood moves. It expands in the summer, contracts in the winter, and every single one of those tiny movements puts a bit of strain on the glue joints holding this chair together. Do that for 5 decades, and eventually something gives. The problem is, most people don't understand wood. So when they see a wobbly chair or a cracked seat, their instinct is to assume it's beyond saving. Furniture shops don't help either. They'd much rather sell you a flat pack replacement than tell you that your old chair, the one with actual history in it, could be fixed for the price of a takeaway. But solid wood furniture from this era was built completely differently to what you'll find on the high street today. This chair is made from proper hardwood, joined with mortise and tenon joints, not stapled together with plastic dowels and wood glue that gives up after 5 years. The bones of this chair are genuinely better than almost anything you could buy new for under a few £100s. All it needs is somebody willing to put the work in. The first thing you always do with a restoration project is a full inspection, because you need to understand every problem before you touch a single joint. Rushing in without a plan is the #1 mistake I see people make, and it almost always ends up creating more work than it saves. Let's start with the obvious one. The broken leg? If you look here, you can see the back left leg has snapped clean through just below where it meets the seat rail. This is an incredibly common failure point on chairs, because that's exactly where all your body weight transfers when you lean back or shift your position. Over 50 years, thousands of tiny stresses have built up right at this weak point, until eventually the wood simply gave out. Next, run your hand along the joints. Feel that movement? That's called joint failure, and it happens when the original animal, hide glue or old PVA glue, dries out and loses its grip. Wood joints rely entirely on a tight glue bond to stay rigid. And once that bond breaks down, you get exactly this kind of wobble, even if the wood itself is perfectly healthy. Now look at the finish. See how it's gone cloudy and cracked in patches? Almost like old varnish on a violin. That's called finish failure or crazing, and it happens when the original lacquer or varnish loses its flexibility over time. It's not dangerous to the wood underneath, but it does make the piece look tired and unloved, which is usually the first thing that puts people off restoring something like this. There are a few watermarks here too on the armrest, those whitish rings you can see under the light. That tells me at some point a wet cup or a damp cloth sat on this surface for too long, and moisture got trapped under the finish. It's cosmetic, not structural, which is good news because water damage that's gone into the wood itself is a much bigger job. Finally, there's general surface wear. Scratches, a few dents, and some discoloration where hands have rested on the arms for half a century. None of this is a problem. In fact, I'd argue it's part of the character of the piece. Our job isn't to make this chair look brand new and characterless. It's to make it strong, stable, and beautiful again, while respecting the fact that it's 50 years old. It's also worth checking underneath the seat, because that's where a lot of hidden problems like to hide. Flip the chair over and look at the corner blocks. Small triangular pieces of wood fitted into the corners of the seat frame to add extra strength. On this chair, one of them has come away completely, which explains some of that extra wobble we felt earlier. It's a small fix, but an important one, because those corner blocks do a huge amount of the structural work that you don't notice until they're gone. I always tell people that a proper inspection takes longer than you'd expect, and that's fine. Rushing this stage means you'll start a repair, get halfway through, and suddenly discover another problem you didn't plan for. 15 minutes of careful checking now saves hours of frustration later. So, to summarize what we're working with, 1 broken leg, several loose joints, a detached corner block, a failing finish, a bit of water staining, and general surface wear. Nothing here is beyond repair. Let's get started. Before any repair work begins, the chair needs a proper clean. This might sound like a boring first step, but skipping it is a mistake, because ooh-est, old wax, and grime sitting in the wood's pores will stop your new finish from bonding properly later on. I use a mix of warm water and a mild wood-safe cleaner, applied with a soft cloth, working with the grain rather than against it. For the tougher grime built up in the crevices, around the spindles and carved details, an old toothbrush works brilliantly to get right into the grooves without damaging the surface. A quick safety tip here. If you're working with any furniture from before around 1978, it's worth being cautious about old paint, since some older finishes can contain lead. This chair has a clear varnish rather than paint, so we're fine here, but always check before you start sanding anything with a painted surface, and wear a proper dust mask regardless. Once the chair is clean and dry, it's time to strip back the old varnish. You've got two main options here: chemical stripper or sanding. For a piece like this, with detail-turned spindles and curved surfaces, I actually prefer a citrus-based chemical stripper, because sandpaper struggles to get into all those little grooves without rounding off the detail. Apply the stripper with a natural bristle brush, following the manufacturer's timing, usually somewhere between 15 and 30 minutes. Then use a plastic scraper to gently lift the softened varnish away. Never use a metal scraper on detail-turned work because it's far too easy to gouge the wood underneath. For the flat sections, like the seat and the armrests, sanding is often quicker and gives you more control. I'll come back to sanding technique in a moment because it deserves its own explanation. Once the old finish is off, wipe the whole piece down with a clean cloth dampened in white spirit to lift any remaining residue. You want to be looking at bare, clean timber before you move on. Sanding is where a lot of restoration projects go wrong, so let's slow down here. The biggest mistake people make is jumping straight to a fine grit sandpaper, which does almost nothing if the surface is rough or uneven. The rule I always follow is to start coarse and work your way finer. For a piece like this, I'll begin with 80 grit to knock back any remaining old finish and smooth out surface imperfections, then move to 120 grit to start refining things, and finish with 220 grit for that smooth, ready-to-finish surface. Always sand with the grain, never against it, because sanding across the grain leaves scratches that will show up horribly once you apply stain or varnish. On turned sections like these spindles, I'll actually use a strip of sandpaper wrapped around the wood like a shoe shine cloth, pulling it back and forth. This follows the curve naturally and gets an even finish all the way around. One professional trick here: after your final sanding pass, lightly dampen the wood with a wet cloth and let it dry. This raises the wood grain slightly, and once it's dry, a very light pass with 220 grit knocks those raised fibers back down. It sounds like an unnecessary extra step, but it's the difference between a finish that feels silky smooth and one that feels slightly rough under your hand even after staining. Now for the main structural repair, that broken back leg. There are two ways to approach a clean break like this: gluing it back together or replacing the section entirely. Since this break is clean, with no wood missing, and it's in a low-stress area once repaired properly, I'm going to glue and reinforce it rather than replace the whole leg. First, I test fit the two broken pieces together to make sure they line up perfectly. You'd be surprised how often a clean break actually fits back together like a jigsaw piece, because the wood fibers tear apart following their natural grain pattern. For the glue itself, I'm using a good quality wood glue, a PVA-based adhesive designed for structural joints. This is important. Not all wood glue is equal. For furniture repairs, you want a glue specifically rated for structural bonds, not a general craft glue. Apply it evenly to both broken surfaces, making sure you get full coverage, then clamp the pieces together and let the glue squeeze out slightly at the joint line. That's actually a good sign. It means you've used enough. Now, gluing alone isn't quite enough for a leg that's going to take weight again. To reinforce the joint, I'm drilling a small pilot hole straight through the repair and inserting a dowel, a short length of hardwood rod, which acts like an internal pin holding the two halves in perfect alignment and adding significant extra strength. This is a trick professional restorers use constantly, and it's the difference between a repair that holds for a few months and one that holds for another 50 years. Once the dowel is glued in and the clamp is tightened, I leave this to cure for a full 24 hours before doing anything else to it. Rushing glue cure time is one of the most common mistakes in furniture restoration. The glue might feel dry to the touch after an hour, but it hasn't reached full strength yet, and putting weight on it too early can cause the joint to fail again. While that leg repair is curing, I'll move on to the wobbly joints elsewhere in the frame. For each one, the process is similar. First, I gently work the joint apart as far as it'll safely go without forcing it and risking splitting the wood. Next, I clean out all the old dried glue from inside the joint using a small chisel or a stiff wire brush. This step matters more than people realize. Old glue residue actually stops new glue from bonding properly. So if you skip this and just squeeze fresh glue into a dirty joint, don't be surprised when it comes loose again in a few months. With the joint cleaned out, I apply fresh wood glue generously into the socket, then push the joint back together, wiping away any excess that squeezes out with a damp cloth before it dries. Which is a furniture clamp, or in a pinch, a ratchet strap wrapped around the whole chair frame, holds everything under even pressure while it cures. A quick word on epoxy here, because people often ask when to use it instead of standard wood glue. Epoxy is a two-part adhesive that's stronger and more gap-filling than regular wood glue, which makes it the better choice when you've got a joint with missing wood, a poor fit, or when you're repairing end grain, which doesn't bond well with standard PVA glue. For tight, clean joints like the ones on this chair, standard wood glue is actually the better choice because it remains slightly more flexible, which suits solid wood as it naturally moves with humidity changes. While we're dealing with structural repairs, let's sort out that detached corner block underneath the seat. This is a straightforward job, but it's one people often skip entirely because it's out of sight and easy to forget, which is exactly why so many old chairs develop that dreaded wobble years down the line. I start by cleaning off the old dried glue from both the block itself and the frame where it used to sit, using the same chisel and wire brush technique from before. Fresh glue never bonds well over old dried glue residue, so this step is non-negotiable. Once both surfaces are clean, I apply a generous, even layer of wood glue to the block and press it firmly back into its original corner, making sure it sits flush against both adjoining rails. To hold it under pressure while it cures, I drive 2 countersunk screws through the block into the seat rails. This is standard practice for corner blocks, since clamping an awkward triangular shape in a hidden corner is nearly impossible, and screws give you reliable, permanent pressure without needing to hold anything in place for 24 hours. A common mistake here is over-tightening the screws, which can actually crack the block if it's a bit dry and brittle from age. Go firm, but not forceful, and if you feel real resistance, stop and check you haven't misaligned the screw. There are a couple of small surface cracks and minor gaps around some of the joints that need addressing before we move to finishing. For this, I use a wood filler that's been color matched as closely as possible to the surrounding timber. In this case, a mid-tone oak filler. Apply it with a flexible filling knife, pressing it firmly into the crack so there are no trapped air pockets, then slightly overfill so you've got material to sand back once it's cured. Let it dry fully according to the packaging instructions, then sand it flush with 220 grit sandpaper. For any larger structural gaps, say if a chunk of wood had actually broken away rather than just cracked, that's where epoxy really earns its place because you can build it up in layers and even tint it to match the surrounding wood tone, something standard filler struggles with on deeper repairs.